The morning sun rose over the purple fields of grain, casting long shadows across Thessic's farm. He walked through the rows, checking each plant with careful attention. The Velnar farmer had done this same walk for 30 seasons, and he knew every corner of his land. That was why the smoking crater in the southern field made his heart stop. Thessic approached slowly, his large eyes wide with concern. The Velnar were a peaceful species, tall and thin with soft gray fur covering their bodies. They had no wars, no weapons, and no experience with violence. The burning metal in his field was something he had only seen in news broadcasts from distant worlds. It was an escape pod. The metal was still hot, and smoke rose from the scorched earth around it. Thessic's hands shook as he found the release mechanism. The door hissed open, and inside he found a small creature covered in blood. A human child. Thessic had heard of humans. Everyone in the galaxy had heard the stories. They came from a death world called Earth, where everything tried to kill everything else. They were violent, dangerous, and barely civilized. The Galactic Council had only recently allowed them to travel among the stars, and many species wanted them restricted to their own system. But this human was just a child, no more than 4 or 5 years old by Thessic's guess. The boy was unconscious, barely breathing. Deep cuts covered his small body, and one arm was bent at a wrong angle. Thessic did not think about politics or council warnings. He only saw a dying child who needed help. He gathered the boy carefully in his arms and ran toward his home. His mate Virana met him at the door, her face showing shock when she saw what he carried. "Thessic, is that a child?" Thessic said firmly. "An injured child who needs our help." Virana hesitated for only a moment. Then she nodded and cleared their table. Together, they worked to clean the boy's wounds and set his broken arm. The child woke several times, crying out in fear and pain, but Virana sang soft songs that slowly calmed him. By evening, the boy's fever had broken. He opened his eyes and looked at them with confusion and terror. Thessic offered him water and spoke in the softest voice he could manage. "You are safe, little one." The boy did not understand their language, but perhaps he understood the tone. He drank the water and closed his eyes again. 3 days passed before the boy could sit up, 7 days before he could walk. During that time, Thessic and Virana learned his name through pictures and gestures. Kael. The boy drew images of a large ship, of other humans, of fire and explosions. Pirates, Thessic realized. The child's family had been killed by raiders. On the 8th day, a council ship arrived. The official who came to their door was a Zentari, a species known for following rules above all else. He looked at Thessic with disapproval. "We detected the human escape pod's signal. You are required by galactic law to turn over the human specimen for quarantine and processing." "His name is Kael," Virana said quietly, "and he is recovering from serious injuries." Moninin. Virana. Moninin. Virana. 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 That is irrelevant. Humans are a restricted species. They must be monitored and controlled. The official looked past them into the house, where Kael sat playing with a simple wooden toy Thessic had made. "The child will be placed in a research facility where scientists can study human development." "He is not a specimen," Thessic said, his voice harder than usual. "He is a child. Your emotional response is noted but immaterial. Council law is clear." The official moved toward the door. Thessic blocked his path. He was not a large being, and he had never threatened anyone in his life. But he stood firm. "You will not take him." The official's eyes widened. "You are refusing a council directive? Do you understand the consequences?" One. I understand that a child needs a home, not a laboratory." Word spread quickly through the Velnar community. By sunset, 50 of Thessic's neighbors surrounded his home, standing between the council officials and the farm. They were not warriors. They carried no weapons. But they stood together, linked arm to arm, and refused to move. The council official tried to argue, then to threaten. But the Velnar would not budge. Finally, frustrated and angry, the official returned to his ship. "You have made a serious mistake," he said before leaving. "The council will hear of this. There will be sanctions, restrictions, consequences. All for one human child." Thesic watched the ship disappear into the sky. Virana took his hand, and he squeezed it gently. Inside their home, Kale watched from the window, not understanding the words, but understanding that these strange, gentle beings had chosen to protect him. In the following weeks, the council made good on their threats. Trade restrictions were placed on the Velnar homeworld. Other species were warned not to do business with them. Diplomatic channels were closed. The price for protecting one human child grew higher each day. But the Velnar did not change their minds. They helped Thesic build an addition to his home for Kael. They brought clothes and toys. They taught the boy their language and included him in their community. And when more council officials came with more threats, the Velnar stood firm each time. Kael grew stronger, his broken arm healed. His nightmares came less often. He learned to laugh again, playing with Velnar children who did not care that he was different. Thesic and Virana became the only parents he could remember, and he called them by the Velnar words for father and mother. The galaxy said humans were dangerous. The council said they were a threat. But the Velnar looked at Kael and saw only a child who needed love. They had no idea that their simple act of kindness would one day change everything. They had no idea that by protecting one human child, they had made humanity remember what it meant to be protected. And humanity never forgot its debts. 8 years had passed since the day Thesic found the escape pod. Kael was now 12 years old, tall for his age, and growing taller every season. He looked less like the terrified child and more like a young man finding his place in the world. But he had never quite fit in. No matter how hard he tried, the Velnar children were kind to him. But they could not keep up with his energy. When they played gentle games, Kael wanted to run faster, climb higher, push harder. When they solved problems through long discussions, Kael saw solutions immediately and grew impatient. And sometimes, when the other children were threatened, something dark and protective rose up inside him that frightened everyone, including himself. There had been an incident last month. A wild predator, rare on the peaceful Velnar world, had wandered near the school. The Velnar children had frozen in fear, as their instincts told them to do. But Kael had grabbed a large branch and placed himself between the animal and his friends. He had shouted and swung the branch until the predator fled. The other children had been saved. But they had also been scared of the look in Kael's eyes, the violence that came so naturally to him. For weeks afterward, some parents kept their children away from the human boy. Virana found Kael that evening, sitting alone in the fields, staring at the stars. "You did the right thing," she said softly, sitting beside him. "They are afraid of me now," Kael replied. "Even after all these years, I am still different." "Different is not wrong, my child. You have gifts that we do not have. Strength, speed, the ability to act when we freeze." She touched his shoulder gently. "Shiwangadan says, but I understand your loneliness." Kael nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in his throat. He loved his Velnar family with all his heart, but part of him wondered about his own kind. What were humans really like? Would he fit better with them? Or was he too Velnar now to belong anywhere? He never got the chance to answer those questions peacefully. 2 months later, the Kresh Dominion arrived. The Kresh were everything the Velnar were not. They were warriors, conquerors, built for battle with thick armor-like skin and powerful clawed hands. Their empire had swallowed 17 worlds in the past decade, and they were always hungry for more. The Velnar world, with its rich soil and perfect growing conditions, was exactly what they wanted. The Kresh demands were simple. Surrender completely, Accept Kresh governors, give 70% of all food production to the Dominion, and allow Kresh military bases on Velnar land. Refuse, and they would take the world by force. The Velnar Council called emergency meetings. They had no military, no weapons, no experience with war. Their philosophy was built on peace, on discussion, on finding common ground. But the Kresh had no interest in discussion. We could surrender, one council member suggested. Accept their terms, and hope they treat us fairly. They will work our people to death in the fields, another argued. The Kresh do not treat conquered species fairly. But what choice do we have? We cannot fight them. The debates went on for days while Kresh warships gathered at the edge of the system, waiting for an answer. Kale listened to the discussions and felt frustration building inside him. He was only 12, but he understood what the adults did not want to admit. The Kresh would not be reasoned with. They would not be swayed by philosophy or gentle words. They understood only strength. At home, Thesic looked older than Kale had ever seen him. The years of sanctions from protecting Kale had already been hard on the Velnar. Now, this. I am sorry, my son, Thesic said quietly. We saved you from danger, but now we cannot save ourselves. Perhaps we should have given you to the council all those years ago. Then we would have trade partners, allies who might help us now. No, Kale said firmly. You did the right thing. You saved me because it was right. Not because you expected something in return, but now my world will fall because of that choice. KL wanted to argue, but he did not know what to say. He was just one human boy. What could he do against an empire? That night, KL had the dream again. The dream he had been having since he was small. He saw the ship where he had lived, saw his birth parents, saw the pirates attacking. But this time the dream continued further. He saw other humans, heard them speaking a language he had almost forgotten. Never leave our people behind, a woman's voice said. Never abandon those who cannot fight for themselves. He woke with tears on his face and a certainty in his heart. Somewhere out there, humanity existed, and if the stories were true, if humans were as fierce and protective as the galaxy feared, then maybe they would help. But how could he reach them? The Velnar had no way to contact human space. The Council had made sure of that, keeping humans isolated and restricted. Then Kale remembered the escape pod. It had been sitting in Thesic's barn for 8 years, too damaged to fly but never completely destroyed. It still had a distress beacon. Working in secret, Kale spent 3 days repairing what he could. He had learned mechanics from Velnar farmers, had a natural talent for understanding how things worked. Finally, he managed to activate the beacon's emergency signal. It would broadcast on human frequencies, calling for help. Whether anyone would hear it, whether anyone would care, he did not know. But he had to try. 5 days after he activated the beacon, 2 things happened at once. A human exploration vessel picked up the signal and changed course to investigate. And the Kresh sent their final ultimatum to the Velnar. They had 2 days to surrender, or the invasion would begin. Thesic found KL staring at the sky, waiting. What are you looking for, my son? Hope, Kale said simply. On the second day, as Kresh warships moved into attack positions, a new ship emerged from faster-than-light travel. It was smaller than the Kresh vessels, but moved with deadly grace. Its hull was marked with symbols Kale had not seen in 8 years. A human ship had arrived, but so had the Kresh fleet, and they were ready for war. The human ship descended through the atmosphere like a falling star. Kale watched from the farm, his heart beating so fast he thought it might break through his chest. Behind the human vessel, the Kresh warships loomed like dark clouds, holding their position but clearly ready to strike. Captain Elena Reeves stood on the bridge of the frigate Defiant, studying the planet below. She had expected to find a human child held prisoner, maybe tortured or experimented on like the horror stories said. The Galactic Council had made it clear they thought humans were dangerous animals that needed to be controlled. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the surface, her communications officer reported. It is from the Velnar Council. They are asking us to land peacefully. Do we have any information on the human child? Elena asked. Negative, Captain. Just the distress beacon signal. It has been broadcasting for 6 days. Elena made her decision. Take us down, but keep weapons ready. If they have hurt one of ours, I want to be prepared. The Defiant landed in a field outside the main Velnar settlement. Elena led a team of 6 Marines, all armed and armored. They expected resistance, maybe a fight. What they found instead made Elena stop in her tracks. A crowd of Velnar stood waiting, and at the front stood a 12-year-old human boy holding the hands of 2 elderly Velnar. When he saw Elena and her crew, his eyes filled with tears. You came, Kale whispered in accented but clear human standard language. You actually came. Elena lowered her weapon slowly. Are you the one who sent the distress signal? Kael nodded. I am sorry. I know it is supposed to be for emergencies only. But this is an emergency. Not for me. For them. He gestured to the Velnar around him. They saved me 8 years ago. Now, they need saving. One of the Velnar, the one holding Kale's left hand, stepped forward. His translator device spoke in human standard. I am Thesic. This is my mate Virana. We ask forgiveness for taking your child without permission. But he was dying, and we could not let him die. Elena looked between the alien and the boy, trying to understand. You have had him for 8 years? What did you do to him? They loved me, Kale said simply. They protected me when the council wanted to take me away. They lost trade partners and allies because they would not give me up. And now they are going to lose everything because the Kresh are going to invade, and no one will help them. Elena felt something shift inside her chest. She had been prepared for many things, but not this. The Kresh are here for your world? Thesic nodded sadly. We have 2 days to surrender, or they attack. The Galactic Council says they cannot help us. They say it would upset the balance of power to interfere. We are, how do they say, acceptable losses. No, but you are just one small ship, Virana added quietly. We do not ask you to fight for us. We only wanted to return Kale to his people before the end comes. Elena looked at her Marines. She saw the same anger on their faces that she felt in her heart. The galaxy had called humans dangerous, had restricted them, and looked down on them. But these gentle beings had saved a human child and asked nothing in return. Now, they were being abandoned by the same council that had condemned humanity. She thought about the oath she had taken when she joined the human fleet. To protect humanity and its interests. But what were humanity's interests, really? To be like the council? Cold and calculating? Or to be better? Elena made a choice that would change galactic history. No, she said firmly. You protected one of ours when you had no reason to. You gave up everything to keep him safe. Now we protect you. Ride. We protect you. Thesic's eyes widened. But you are only one ship. The Kresh have 20 warships. You would die for nothing. We would die for something, Elena corrected him. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel. All human frequencies. Emergency priority. Captain, that will reach every human ship and colony within 20 light years, the officer warned. I know. Do it. The channel opened. Elena took a breath and spoke words that would echo across human space. This is Captain Elena Reeves of the Defiant. 8 years ago, a human child crashed on this world. The Galactic Council ordered him taken to a research facility. The people of this world refused. They protected him, raised him, loved him as their own. They lost allies and suffered sanctions for saving one human child. Now an enemy force threatens to conquer their world, and the Council has abandoned them. I am asking for any human vessel that can reach us to come, not because we expect to win, but because they saved one of ours when no one else would. Because we do not abandon those who show us kindness. Because that is what makes us human. She closed the channel and waited. Her crew looked at her with respect and fear. She had just committed her ship to an unwinnable battle. 3 hours passed. The Kresh sent a message demanding that the human ship leave or be destroyed with the Velnar. Elena ignored them. Then, one by one, signatures appeared on the scanner. Ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. A merchant vessel. A mining transport. A passenger liner that should not have had any weapons at all. By evening, 4 human ships orbited the Velnar world. Still badly outnumbered, still likely to lose, but no longer alone. Kale stood on the hill watching the stars, seeing the distant lights of human vessels. Thesic stood beside him. "Your people are coming to die for us," Thesic said quietly. "I do not understand this. It is not logical." "No." Kale agreed. "But it is right. You taught me that. You showed me that protecting someone is worth any cost." More ships arrived through the night. The count grew to 7, then 10, then 15. Civilian vessels, research ships, even a few small patrol craft. None of them were warships. None of them were designed for battle. But they came anyway. On the bridge of the Defiant, Elena watched the fleet grow and felt pride mixed with sadness. They were still outnumbered. The Kresh had better weapons, better armor, better training, but humanity had something else. They had purpose. The Kresh commander sent one final message. "Human vessels, you are interfering in Dominion expansion. Leave now or be eliminated." Elena responded simply. "They protected our child. Now we protect their world. If you want it, you go through us." The Kresh fleet began moving into attack formation. The human ships, outnumbered and outgunned, formed a defensive screen around the Velnar planet. Kael held Thesic's hand and watched the sky prepare for war. The first Kresh attack came at dawn. 3 heavy cruisers broke formation and moved toward the human defensive line, their weapons charging with deadly light. The Galactic Council watched through monitoring satellites, recording what they expected to be a quick human defeat. They were wrong. Captain Elena Reeves did not fight like Council species fought. She did not form neat battle lines or follow standard engagement protocols. Instead, the Defiant dove straight toward the approaching Kresh ships, firing as it went, then rolled away at the last second. The merchant vessel followed the same pattern from a different angle. Then the mining ship attacked from below. The Kresh commander had never seen such chaotic tactics. His ships were built for honorable combat, for meeting enemies head-on with superior firepower. The humans fought like the predators from their death world, striking and disappearing, never where they were expected to be. "They fight without honor," the Kresh weapons officer reported. "They fight to win." The commander corrected grimly. He had underestimated these newcomers. "All ships, abandon formation. Hunt them individually." But breaking formation was exactly what Elena wanted. The moment the Kresh ships separated, the human vessels swarmed. They were smaller, faster, and they used the planet's gravity and atmosphere to their advantage. A mining ship, designed to break apart asteroids, used its drilling lasers to punch through Kresh armor. A passenger liner, fitted with improvised weapons, rammed a Kresh destroyer that got too close. The battle was costly. 2 human ships were destroyed in the first hour, but they took 3 Kresh vessels with them. On the surface, Kale watched the sky light up with explosions. Each flash might be a human ship dying to protect his world. The thought made him sick with guilt. "I should not have called them," he said to Virana. "I have killed them. No, my child. They chose to come. They chose to fight." She hugged him close. "Just as we chose to protect you. Some choices are worth the cost." But Kael could not accept that. He was 12 years old, but he understood tactics better than the peaceful Velnar. He understood what the humans needed to win. They needed information about Kresh positions, needed supply lines, needed medical support for their wounded. He went to Thesic with a plan. "I can help them," Kael said. "I know our world. I can organize supply drops. coordinate where the Kresh ground forces are landing, help evacuate settlements before battles reach them. You are too young, Thesic protested. I am the only one who understands both Velnar and human thinking. Please, father, let me help save both my peoples. Thesic looked at his adopted son, seeing not a child anymore, but a young man who had found his purpose. Reluctantly, he agreed. Kael contacted the Defiant and explained his plan. Elena was hesitant at first, but she saw the value. Within hours, Kael had organized a network of Velnar volunteers who reported Kresh movements, provided supplies to human ships, and coordinated planetary defense. The Kresh began landing ground troops, expecting the Velnar to surrender immediately. Instead, they found their landing zones already evacuated, their supply lines harassed by hit-and-run attacks, and their communications jammed by techniques that should not have been possible for such a peaceful species. It was Kael who taught the Velnar how to be brave without being violent, how to resist without fighting. The Velnar could not kill, but they could slow the Kresh down, make them waste resources, force them to split their attention. 3 days into the battle, more human ships arrived. These were not civilian vessels. These were military cruisers from the nearest human colony. Alerted by Elena's original message, the odds began to shift. But the Kresh were not ready to give up. They had committed too many resources, lost too many ships. Retreating would be a humiliation. Their commander ordered a final assault, throwing everything at the human defensive line. The battle that followed was the fiercest yet. Kael watched from a command center that Thesic had helped build, coordinating between species, translating quickly, making sure everyone knew where they were needed most. He saw the tactical displays showing human ships being damaged, destroyed, their life signs winking out one by one. Then something happened that changed everything. A Kresh ground force broke through the defensive perimeter and headed straight for the settlement where Thesic and Virana lived. Elena saw it on her scanners, but was too far away to stop them. She broadcast a warning, but Kael was already moving. He took one of the human weapons that a Marine had shown him how to use. He ran faster than he had ever run before, his human body capable of speeds no Velnar could match. He reached the settlement just as the Kresh soldiers entered. Thesic stood in the doorway of their home, unarmed, trying to reason with warriors who only understood force. The lead Kresh raised his weapon, preparing to fire. Kael shot first. The Kresh soldier fell. Kael kept firing, his hands steady despite his pounding heart. He was terrified, but he was also determined. These beings had given him everything. He would not let them die. More humans arrived within minutes, driving off the remaining Kresh. But the damage was done, in a different way. The Velnar had seen Kael kill to protect them. They had seen violence used not for conquest but for defense. That night, Thesic found Kael sitting alone, shaking. I killed them, Kael whispered. I took lives. Yes, Thesic said gently. And you saved mine. You saved Virana. You saved our neighbors. He sat beside his adopted son. We Velnar have always believed that violence is wrong. But perhaps we were wrong to think there is no difference between violence for conquest and violence for protection. You taught me that today. I thought you would hate me. I could never hate you, my son. You are both human and Velnar now. You carry the strength of one and the compassion of the other. Perhaps that is what the galaxy needs. On the 5th day of battle, the Kresh commander made a choice. He had lost half his fleet. The humans fought with a ferocity that his warriors could not match. And somehow, impossibly, the peaceful Velnar had learned to resist. The cost of taking this world had become too high. The Kresh fleet withdrew, jumping to faster-than-light travel and disappearing from the system. The humans had won, but the victory came at a price. 5 human ships were destroyed completely. 8 more were heavily damaged. Hundreds of human crew members had died, defending a world most of them had never heard of before that week. Elena stood on the surface of the Velnar world, surrounded by grateful civilians, and felt the weight of those losses. When Thesic approached her, she spoke before he could. I need to leave soon. I need to report to human command. Face whatever consequences come from this. Stay, Thesic said simply. Please, at least for a while. We have much to discuss. The Galactic Council joined emergency session 3 days after the battle ended. The chambers were filled with representatives from dozens of species, all speaking at once, all demanding answers. In the center of it all stood the human delegation, led by Ambassador Chen from Earth's diplomatic corps. The humans violated 17 council regulations, the Zentari representative declared. They interfered in a sovereign territorial dispute. They brought military vessels into restricted space. They saved an entire world that you abandoned. Ambassador Chen interrupted calmly. The Velnar asked for help. You refused. We did not. The Council has protocols for these situations. We cannot interfere every time a minor species faces conflict. It would destabilize the entire galactic order. Chen leaned forward. Then perhaps your order needs to change. The Velnar protected a human child at great cost to themselves. We simply returned that kindness. If your council punishes loyalty and rewards abandonment, then humanity wants no part of it. The chambers erupted in argument. But Chen noticed something interesting. Not all the species were arguing against humanity. Some were watching quietly, listening carefully. The smaller species, the peaceful ones, the ones who had no armies to defend themselves. On the Velnar homeworld, Captain Elena Reeves faced a different kind of meeting. The Velnar Council had gathered, along with the captains of every human ship that had survived the battle. Thesic stood at the center, with Kale beside him. We have a proposal, Thesic began. Captain Reeves, your people fought bravely for us. Many died. We can never repay that debt. But we would like to offer something. A partnership. Elena listened carefully as Thesic explained. The Velnar world was rich in food production, producing far more than their population needed. Human colonies were growing fast, and always needed food supplies. More than that, the Velnar needed protection. The Kresh would return eventually, or another aggressive species would try to claim their world. We propose a treaty, Thesic said. The Velnar provide food and agricultural technology to human colonies. In exchange, humanity establishes a defensive presence here. Not as conquerors, but as guardians. Our two species working together, each providing what the other lacks. The human captains looked at each other. This was beyond their authority to decide. But Elena saw the bigger picture. Humanity was still new to galactic politics, still treated as dangerous primitives. An alliance with a peaceful, respected species could change that. I will recommend this treaty to Earth, Elena said. But I think they will accept. My people understand the value of protecting those who show us kindness. Word of the proposed treaty spread quickly through the galaxy. The Council tried to forbid it, claiming humans could not be trusted with such responsibility. But they could not stop it. More importantly, other species began to take notice. A week after the treaty was announced, a delegate from the Mirren arrived at the Velnar world. The Mirren were a small, aquatic species from a world rich in rare minerals. They had been paying tribute to the Kresh for years to avoid invasion, slowly bankrupting their civilization. We heard what you did for the Velnar, the Mirren delegate said to Elena. We heard that humanity does not conquer but protects. We would like to make a similar arrangement. Our minerals. For your protection. More species followed. The Yalith, who had been raided by pirates for generations. The Korvan, whose world sat on a strategic trade route that made them constant targets. The Phoenix, whose philosophy of peace made them vulnerable to aggression. One by one, non-military species that the Council had failed to protect reached out to humanity. Within 6 months, humanity had defensive treaties with 12 different species. Human ships patrolled their borders, not as invaders, but as guardians. And in return, humanity gained access to resources, technology, and trade networks that accelerated their development by decades. The Council watched with growing alarm as a new power block formed, centered around humanity. They tried sanctions. They tried diplomatic pressure. But it was too late. The smaller species had found protectors who actually cared about their survival. 2 years after the Battle of Velnar, Kale stood in the newly built academy on the Velnar homeworld. He was 14 now, almost fully grown, and he had become something unique in the galaxy. He was the bridge between species, the living proof that different peoples could work together. The academy was his idea. A place where both Velnar and human students could learn from each other. Where Velnar could teach compassion, philosophy, and peaceful problem-solving. Where humans could teach defensive tactics, strategic thinking, and the courage to stand against aggression. Thesic attended the academy's opening ceremony, older now but filled with pride as he watched Kale speak to the first class of students. "You are not here to learn how to conquer," Kale told them. "You are here to learn how to protect. The galaxy is full of those who take from the weak. We are learning to be different. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand for those who are willing to stand for others." In the audience sat young humans and young Velnar, and even a few students from other species who had heard about the academy. They listened with eager eyes, understanding that they were part of something new. After the ceremony, Elena found Thesic standing alone, watching the sunset over the purple grain fields. "You gave up a lot to protect one child," Elena said quietly. "Did you ever regret it?" Thesic smiled. "Every choice has a cost. We paid with sanctions, with diplomatic isolation, with hardship, but look what we gained." He gestured toward the academy, where students from different worlds were learning together. "One child has changed the fate of dozens of worlds." "No, Captain, I have no regrets." "Neither do I," Elena admitted. "My superiors were angry at first. I violated orders, risked my ship, started a war. But they could not argue with the results. Humanity has more allies now than we ever would have gotten through traditional diplomacy. Because you showed the galaxy what humans truly are. Not the violent primitives the Council claimed, but beings who understand loyalty and honor." In orbit above them, a mixed fleet of human and allied vessels patrolled the system. Ships from a dozen species, working together, protecting each other. It was something the galaxy had never seen before. At the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Chen presented a formal declaration. "Humanity and our allies are forming the Mutual Protection Coalition. Any species that wishes to join, who commits to both defending others and accepting defense in turn, is welcome. We will not be part of a council that allows the strong to prey on the weak." The council tried to condemn the declaration, but they could not stop it. The coalition grew, species after species joining, until it represented nearly a quarter of known, civilized worlds. The galaxy had changed, and it had changed because one species of peaceful beings had chosen to protect a single human child, and that child's people had never forgotten. Kale stood on the hill behind Thesic's farm, the same hill where he had watched for human ships years ago. Now he watched the lights of dozens of ships from many worlds, all working together. Thesic joined him, as he often did during quiet evenings. "Do you ever miss your birth family?" Thesic asked gently. "Every day," Kale admitted. "But I also know they would be proud. We turned tragedy into something good. We made sure that what happened to them, what happened to me, would mean something. You have given the galaxy hope, my son. Hope that different peoples can work together. That strength and compassion are not opposites, but partners." Kale smiled. "You taught me that. When you saved me, you showed me that being kind is not the same as being weak. And when we protected you, we showed the galaxy that being strong does not mean being cruel." Far above them, in the cold darkness of space, human vessels stood watch. Not as conquerors, but as guardians. And throughout the galaxy, other species looked at the Velnar world and saw proof that there was another way. That those who protected the helpless would themselves be protected. Humanity had found its place among the stars. Not as the dangerous primitives the Council had feared, but as the guardians the galaxy had needed all along. And it all started because one farmer could not let a child die in his field, and one species never forgot that kindness.